Soundstripe.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kelby Ross. Welcome to our podcast. It is Hammerdown Time. ASCS opener night number 2, and then some more NARC stuff. We're going to go kind of in depth into some California stuff today. This is the first official episode of the first full episode of the Hammerdown Time podcast. So we'll begin with the ASCS opener at the Big Sky Speedway, night number 2. This really could be a strong candidate for race of the year. Of course, with no streaming, it's going to be hard to, say yes or no to that. And we could talk about the streaming, debate, at another time. Rubber laid down pretty early at the Big Sky Speedway in the feature, but lap traffic certainly played a big role in the way that this feature rolled out. Kelly Miller early on went from third to first with the move in traffic as Harley White and Trevor Kirkland were duking it out in traffic, and went on to lead the middle portions of the race through traffic, amassed a fairly substantial lead. Doesn't mean as much as a big lead as you can get in the rubber. So he did that, and then we really ran the first 24 of the 25 laps nonstop, and then Kelly Miller started to get caught up in traffic with 2 laps to go, and Harley White, who was in the Bray Industries 12 HW this weekend, pulled up to the back bumper, and then in turns 1 and 2 passed him on the white flag lap as the leaders were entering turn 3 when the caution flag flew. And we had to revert to the last completed lap, which, of course, and we went green-white checkered, so, I guess we reverted back to 23 laps complete instead of the 24 that we had completed, technically speaking. Harley White took the lead in 1 and 2, and really, throughout the weekend, we'd seen some stuff with, cars kind of coasting around on the racetrack, and them giving them some time to get off, which, yes, I understand. You want to keep the show going. We were, rolling, up against rain. Rain was on the horizon on the radar, so it's understandable why they want to keep the show going, but I also understand, that there were a couple of drivers who voiced some concerns beforehand, citing safety. Just somebody rolling around off the pace, idling around, and, cars are rolling, at full tilt at Big Sky Speedway. Big Sky Speedway is essentially, almost a half mile, it seems like, here up in Montana. And so I understand. I see both sides. I see wanting to keep the show going, but I also see wanting, to keep drivers safe. And so, they ended up using the caution there. I'm still not super sure what it was for either. I believe the official one was Damon McCune, in car number 44, had blown a right rear, and he was unable to get off the racetrack in time, so we ended up reverting back to a green-white checkered restart. And in the end, Kelly Miller, with the mixture of clean air and rubber to his advantage, he wins and sweeps the weekend at the Big Sky Speedway with the Frontier Region. So good start to the year for Kelly Miller. Really just showing his prowess. He's looking unbeatable right now, as I mentioned on the Saturday, update type thing I did, kind of impromptu thing. But Harley White also looked really good. She's been getting a lot more seat time this year, and that's pretty cool to see. She's always a fan favorite everywhere she goes. She was noticeably dejected in victory lane on Saturday night, and I can understand why. That was a tough one. That was a tough one to call. That was a tough one to see. You really want to see a fan favorite win, but also, sometimes that's racing. So, up next for the ASCS Frontier Region is the Memorial Special at Electric City Speedway on May 23rd and 24th. And, of course, one of my pet peeves, anybody who knows where I'm from, we were on Across the Groove. That was the old podcast that my brother and I did, and now I'm kind of doing my own thing here. But, something that I didn't really talk about was, it taken a while for people to get their points updated, and of course the series I work for hasn't updated theirs yet. It's Monday, almost 2 days after the Saturday night race, and But anyways, we'll get you an update at some point for the ASCS Frontier Region. Right now, we're going to preview some stuff here in the state of Montana. Just kind of a dirt track preview. We'll call it the Montana dirt portion of the episode here. So the Gallatin Speedway has not started racing yet. They will start the last Friday of May. On May 30th is when we will see the Gallatin Speedway finally come to life in 2025. And then on June 6th, the ASCS Sprint Cars will roll in. Rocky Mountain Sprint Cars there on June 20th. Montana Madness on June 27th and 28th down at the Gallatin Speedway. On 7/11, we will see the ASCS Sprint Cars Girls Night Out on July 25th. And the Big Sky Super Nationals, which is always a good time, on September 5th and 6th. I believe the ASCS Sprints will be there on the 5th. So, some defending champions, kind of preview that a little bit. The Sport Compacts had Gerard Frick. Hope I'm saying that right. Hope I'm saying that frickin' right. In the Street Stock division, we had Robert Petrov, the champion of the Gallatin Speedway. Robert Petrov, I got to talk about him for a second. This is a guy who was third in the National Wissota points in the Street Stock division. He had a chance at the Montana Roundup last season. He walked me through what he was going to have to do. He was really trying to chase down that national title. Ended up third. Ended up winning 24 races in, I believe it was 45 main events last year. Just an incredible season, and Robert Petrov just continues to kick some major tail in that 11-star. 5 wins Gallatin last year in 2024. In the Super Stock division, we saw quick Nick Hunter. He had 2 victories in the Super Stocks. And late models, it was Ty Hample. And in the modifieds, we've already talked about him. I talked about him on Saturday. The big unit, Jordan Tossie, has 2 wins. And Jeremy Meyerhofer was second in both the Super Stock division and the IMCA modified division. Something kind of funny, I think Ty Clemens is jealous that I got to hold hands with Jordan Tossie in Victory Lane at Electric City Speedway. I believe that this is 2023 now, I believe. Tossie had won, and we had kind of an awkward thing. I'm sure he'd say I didn't let go of the handshake in Victory Lane, but, there's now a picture of, on Ty Clemens' My Race Pass, and that's the picture of me holding hands with Jordan Tossie. So, I don't know. Maybe Ty Clemens wants to hold my hand, or, I don't know. But, we'll see what that is. But Jordan Tossie is absolutely killing it already this year at Electric City Speedway. We'll get to that in a second. That dude already has like a handful of victories. And so, just got finished talking about the Big Sky Speedway as they, their remaining schedule for 2025. They've already been running. June 13th and 14th will be the Mountain States Modified Tour over at the Big Sky Speedway. June 20th and 21st, the Hillbilly Nationals with the ASCS Frontier Region. I don't know if I have to wear... I don't know. I'll have to talk to Drew, but I may have to cut the sleeves off every shirt I wear for that weekend. That's a possibility, not sure, but it could be. July 25th and 26th, we'll have the non-wing sprints there at Big Sky. The Riker Memorial on August 1st and 2nd, compacts, Midwest mods, and the street stocks. That's a big. I like races with names, and so that's what these next couple are. August 16th, we'll have the Hample Memorial. The late models will be. That's a big event there for them at the Big Sky Speedway. August 22nd and 23rd, the Cars and Stars of the ASCS National Sprint Cars will be at the Harvey Ostermiller Memorial over at the Big Sky Speedway. Really looking forward to that one. I have been. That's a race I've been wanting to get over these past couple of seasons, and so I'll be glad to finally get back there to get over to that one this season. September 5th and 6th, non-winged sprint cars, September 19th and 20th, non-winged sprint cars, and then the season finale on October 3rd and 4th with non-winged sprint cars and late models, kind of the headliners there, other than their regular classes. So, their defending champions were in the Sport Compacts, Chaz Mady, 9 wins in 12 races as a rookie. Some impressive stuff there from Chaz Mady. The Street Stocks, Troy Seapack Jr. had 2 wins en route to the championship in 2024. In the Legends, it was Travis Wagner, 2 wins as a rookie. In the Super Stocks division, we saw R.C. Geis picking up a win on May 4th and the championship in 2024, the truly season-long championship. We don't have to do gimmicks like playoffs and, wreckfests like that. In the Midwest Modified Division, Troy Seapack Jr. won the Midwest Modified Championship without winning a race. He had one more top 10 than Rod Lorenz, and that ended up being the championship deciding factor as Lorenz finished in second by 1 point. So, non-winged sprint cars at the Big Sky Speedway, or traditional sprint cars, depending on what you want to call them. Phil Dietz competed in only 9 of 12 races and won 6 of those 9 races that he competed in, and won the Sprint Car Championship. Really disappointed that I'm not going to be able to watch Phil Dietz this year. I had a feeling that he was going to really challenge for the ASCS Frontier Region Championship, and then, just a guy I've always wanted to watch a little bit more, and unfortunately, he decided. I believe he's not racing this year. I think that's confirmed. I don't know what is public, but I do know that Phil Dietz is not running in 2025. So, Ty Hample, who was the Wissota State Champion for the late models in 2024, got a win on July 26th, and he was the champion for the late models. Over the Big Sky Speedway in the AMOD division, it was Dale Neitzel. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Dale Neitzel, who also got a win on July 26th, and he was the champion over the Big Sky Speedway. And now we go to my Montana home track, Electric City Speedway. We'll see this weekend, already mentioned that, with May 23rd and 24th, the Memorial Special at the ASCS Frontier Region. The ASCS Frontier Region will return on June 7th for the Midwest Modified Special. June 14th, Tribute to Dads. We'll see the Rocky Mountain Sprint Cars over at Electric City Speedway on June 14th. June 20th and 21st, the Late Model Challenge. Rocky Mountain Sprints will be there on night number 2. June 28th, we'll have Rockies again. And then July 3rd and 4th. This is a big one. I'm excited. I'll actually be at this race. We'll see the Rocky Mountain Sprints there for that one as well. For the fastest in the falls. That's a big modified race for them, but the Rockies will be there, and I will be there. I'm very excited about that one. The thrill of the 360s on July 12th. We will see the ASCS Frontier Region back there once again. Rocky Mountain Sprints on August 16th. And the biggest event for Electric City Speedway every year is the Montana Roundup, August 29th to the 31st. for the ASCS National Tour on the first 2 nights. And this season, we'll actually see Electric City Speedway running on September 6th. So, not their season finale, but we will see the Montana Roundup, and that's always a good time. So, they're defending champions up in Great Falls, the Sport Compacts division. Brian Johnson, who was a rookie in 2025, 2024 rather, he is going to run a street stock this year. In the street stock division, Caden Craver begins, and the Craver name, just a legacy of championships and a lot of wins for Corey Craver and now Caden Craver. He began his winning last season at Electric City Speedway. In the Super Stocks division, Casey Stephenson, what a run of dominance that guy has had. 8 wins at Electric City Speedway and the Montana State Champion in 2024. C.R. Eisenzimmer won the Midwest Modifieds division without winning a race. 11 top 5s, 13 top 10s in 13 races. Had a great run of 13 straight top 10s at Electric City Speedway, and unfortunately that came to an end earlier this season, but C.R. Eisenzimmer is always one to watch. Really Mr. Consistency last season. In the Rocky Mountain Sprint Cars division, Corey Wormling had 2 wins en route to his title in 2024. He's already been in victory lane at Electric City Speedway in 2025 as well, so Corey Wormling not missing a beat. In the late models division, Jeremy Castro, Rookie of the Year and a champion, winner on August 24th. Winner of a 3-way tie with Ty Hampel and Travis Shoemate, as Jeremy Castro was able to get the nod with that. In the A-Mods, Joey Price won his 3rd championship in a row and swept the Montana Roundup in the Modifieds division. In the A-Mod division, so that was 2 victories for him that weekend, 3 overall in 2024's the A-Mods division. There was so much parity last year at Electric City Speedway, so Joey Price been struggling a little bit. I've noticed that in 2025 over at Electric City Speedway, so hopefully he's able to get he's got to be able to get at least a couple of victories in this season. We'll look forward to Joey Price getting back into victory lane, because it's it's almost guaranteed to happen at this point. Smoking Joey at Electric City Speedway, synonymous with success, is the Price family, especially these past few years for Joey. And so that's it for the Montana Dirt portion of episode 1 of the Hammerdown Time podcast. So we're just going to kind of, we talked about NARC on Saturday, and so we'll talk about them again today, and just kind of, for the future, we'll talk about just kind of whatever comes up, right? We will cover NARC pretty in depth, and then we will, sprinkle in High Limit, World of Outlaws, whatever other sprint car stuff I want to talk about, because it's my show, damn it. NARC already has 5 races in this season, and DJ Netto, or rather 6 features, 5 races. So DJ Netto and Justin Sanders have 2 victories apiece for the NARC Sprint Cars. And Saturday night at the Thunder Bowl, we saw Tanner Holmes and Caden Steele making a Tarleton sweep of the Maury Williams Memorial. The Maury Williams Memorial was won by Tim Kading, the championship. How they do that is they take the starting positions and from feature 1 and feature 2, and they add them up. Whoever has the lowest is considered the champion of this event, and so that was Tim Kading. Not his first one. I know he's won a couple of them at this point for the Maury Williams Memorial. with a 15th to 8th charge in the second feature. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. The second feature at the Maury Williams needs to be at least 10 laps longer. We had 22 cars start the second feature, and the top 3 from the first feature started 17th, 16th, and 15th respectively. Of course, Tim Kading finished 3rd in the first one, and Tanner Holmes was, trying to move up from 17th. They need more time to get to the front, and so, I know it won't make twin features, but double features will still be fun, and, it would give them more time and, more of an opportunity to get to the front. 20 laps is just not long enough, so TK was able to get 11 on his score, average, if you will, or his the sum of his finishing positions ended up with an 11. So he ended up 1 spot better than DJ Neto, who scored 12, and then 13 for Holmes. Those guys were the top dudes. Caden Steele was able to pick up his first win, the first win of his career at the Thunderbolt. The first NARC win of his career came at the Thunderbolt on Saturday night. Up next, we talked about the rest of the NARC schedule on Saturday. And so we'll just tell you what's up next, and that is the Dave Bradway Jr. Memorial at Placerville this season. If you've been kind of out of the loop, and you heard about the Maury Williams race, and, that's usually King Speedway. King Speedway right now is currently dark. So Peter Murphy stepped away from the promotion of King Speedway in between 2024 and 2025. Peter, who took it over in 2020 and introduced big money races to the Central Valley, which really hadn't really had, other than like the Trophy Cup off the top of my head, hadn't really had a lot of big money races, and I mean like 10,000 to win. We saw the Peter Murphy Classic. That was the one that had probably the most hype around it, and it should. Obviously, it was always a good time. With the pole shuffle, and then, it just, everyone loves Peter, and so that was a big one. Of course, we just talked about the Maury Williams Memorial, the Tarleton Classic, and the Simone Classic. The Simone Classic was a 10,000 to win, and the Tarleton Classic, of course, 21,000 to win. And so now those are 4 big money races that aren't happening in 2025. The only Central Valley track that was running sprint car races on a consistent basis. Tulare only has about 10 nights a year, and we'll get to the other Central Valley tracks as well in a second. Some more of the reasons that Peter had to step away is rumored problems with the Fair Board not allowing the rescheduling of races, and when you can't reschedule races, obviously you miss out on all of that, all that money. And so I was under the impression that High Limit came in and they were looking for something, and that High Limit had stolen the Peter Murphy Classic, which the Tarleton Classic became an outlaw race. I don't really love that, or I didn't really love that when it was running, because I felt like a lot of the Tarleton, first of all, that was a local race when it first came about, and local guys don't get to run for $21,000 very often at all. And so the Peter Murphy Classic was a cool deal, and the rest of those were all also local, NARC races, and so. But I didn't like that the Tarleton Classic became an outlaw race. I thought that that should have remained a NARC race. I thought that the same thing had happened with High Limit in 2024 with the Peter Murphy Classic. I was wrong. They couldn't get the Peter Murphy Classic on the schedule, get it rescheduled, as I believe it rained out last year. So just problems with fair boards, man. I don't know what it is with California fair boards and not understanding, that the racetracks are, where they're. It's really what keeps, a lot of those fairgrounds, people going to them and using them, kind of year round. Of course, who says the government cares about and thinks things through logically. But anyways, it just goes to show you, if you're in these areas, you got to vote for the right people. Or I don't know. Actually, I don't think the fair board is typically elected. It depends. If you're in these areas and you can donate your time getting on the fair board, go do it. Because obviously we need to keep these tracks open. Petaluma's been under the gun a lot, and Santa Maria is a privately owned track, but I mean, Calistoga is probably the other notable fairgrounds track that got that went quiet for a very long time. So, that's another rabbit hole we can talk about with California and building a bunch of dirt tracks on publicly owned, technically, or government owned land. So I will say I don't necessarily agree with, I disagree with the scarcity theory. Especially with 2 months off in the summer, I think that you would have to do, I think that more races more often would have helped, especially with a weekly show to kind of build up, the more consistent dirt track racing in the Central Valley, especially sprint car racing. Just doing the big money shows, I think can kind of lead to what we got, and it's a great way to make money. You're not necessarily guaranteed, but you're going to get a bigger crowd and bigger car counts and things like that. I don't know the ins and outs of the situation. I do know that their operating costs were extremely high. You look at all the restoration projects and which I went to King Speedway right after Peter had done a bunch of work, and I believe it was 2022 when we went back there and watched Corey Day win his first NARC race. They did a lot of work and it looked really good, but I'm sure that also had something to do with Peter stepping back, because the text I got from him when I asked him about it was, it doesn't make money, and no further elaboration. So it's unfortunate. Obviously, Kings is a track I grew up going to out in California, and so we really want to I would love to see that track come back and to have somebody with as much passion like Peter, who won a ton of races out there, and then, to continue, just with like I said, a guy who has that kind of passion. Hopefully we can find somebody who has that same passion who will bring Kings back from the dead. So unfortunately, it's kind of dead in the water right now. And so that leads me to pose kind of an uncomfortable question. Is sprint car racing in the Central Valley dying? Like I said, no King Speedway means we don't have the $11,000 to win Peter Murphy Classic, the $21,000 to win Tarleton Classic, or the Simone Classic, which was $10,000 to win. In 2024, the Kings accounted for 11 winged sprint car races in 2024. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, those were usually, I think, 2-night shows, most of them. So, and Oildale was closing down. Oildale did close down over the off season. They owned only one winged sprint car race in 2024. Between the 3 tracks in Central California, actually 4, check that, in 2025, there are 24 winged sprint car races on the schedule, and I believe Stockton had one rain out earlier this year. Really, there are no races in the Central Valley, and that's somewhat understandable because of the heat, the unbearable heat. I grew up in it. I remember, triple digits from, the end of May to, sometimes even into October when we were out sweating our butts off at the Fresno Fair. And so it's understandable why they don't want to have, because, July and August are those months where it doesn't get cooler at night. It goes from like 115 in the day to like 95 at night. And I remember that well. It was never fun to try and sleep in that. Obviously, other than high limit on August 15th at the Thunderbolt, we will not see Central Valley sprint car tracks not have anything for July and August. There really hasn't been any weekly racing in the Central Valley, whether it's 360 or 410, since about 2017. And that was Kings Speedway. They kind of had their own, like the Ocean Sprints had their Taco Bravo thing, and then the Kings Speedway had their deal going on a Friday night as well. I thought the Kings of Thunder would be, kind of a regularly scheduled thing, between, Kings and Tulare. That's what it was. My understanding was that's what it was supposed to be. Of course, I think that came about during if not right before. I think it came about right before COVID, and then of course COVID messed everything up, and then Peter took over the Kings of Thunder when he took over Kings, and it's it kind of was almost an afterthought, more companion 360 stuff rather than, having a more regularly scheduled thing. That's what I thought it was. The original understanding of that was. So, I mean, when we're looking at only 24 in the Central Valley, you can go up to Northern California, and there are 54 races between Placerville, Marysville, and Watsonville in 2025. Of course, in the main Central Valley, we're talking about, I think there's, off the top of my head, there's 5 tracks now because Oildale is gone. So you got KCRP, or well, I guess there's only 4 now because Kings is also gone. KCRP, the Thunderbolt, Merced, I guess, and Stockton. So, I mean, obviously money's a big issue, but I hoping that we'll see some. There was already a lot of hope that came out of Peter taking over at Kings, and unfortunately a lot of that stuff just never came to fruition. But who knows what's in store for the future of Central Valley Sprint Car Racing. I certainly hope that it's going to come back stronger one of these days, but I especially want to see the Thunderbolt Raceway used a little bit more. And I always thought that it would be kind of cool to see the Kings of Thunder kind of expand to more more like just encompassing all the Central Valley tracks. So, if they were going to go up to Merced, or they were go to and have KCRP on their schedule too. I think there was I remember 2020. Whenever the ASCS National Series was supposed to go out to California, and they didn't, and then they had the I-5 Classic. I thought that went really well, and unfortunately that just never happened again down at KCRP. I thought a series between Kings, Tulare, and the Bakersfield tracks would have been a really cool idea. Obviously, with half of those tracks out of the picture now, that kind of out of the question for now, but hopefully we see somebody get something going at Kings. We saw the Pombos take over Santa Maria, and they're absolutely killing it out there. And then I guess Santa Maria is not necessarily like a Central Valley track; they're more on the coast, but I mean they would pull a lot of those guys. So a lot of those teams would go out to, are more likely to go out to Santa Maria. Like for example, when Race Savers were running a more consistent schedule, they would go out to Santa Maria too. So, but yeah, I hopefully one day we will see more racing in Central California. Like I said, money is a big deal, and the powers that be in California, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, it's obviously sprint car racing is tough enough and expensive enough, but when you have the people in charge making it even more difficult to live out there, it makes it even worse. So hopefully we see more of a Central California resurgence one day. We'll hold out hope for that. But it's not looking great right now, quite frankly. So, but it's not going to stop us from keeping an eye on it. Hopefully somebody takes over at Kings and has as much passion as Peter did. So, anyways, if you want to weigh in, we can fight it out in the comments. Like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, and that's going to do it for me here at the Hammerdown Time podcast. We'll see you at the races. Hammer down.